In 1944, at a quiet New Hampshire resort called Bretton Woods, 44 nations signed away the financial future of the world. By the 15th of August, 1971, President Richard Nixon had broken that promise. The dollar was no longer backed by gold. And since that day, the US dollar has ruled the global system not by metal, but by belief. That belief that a piece of paper from Washington is safer than gold, oil, or land became the foundation of modern power. But beliefs can crack, and when they do, empires shake. The world has started to whisper the same forbidden question once asked of Britain's pound in the 1,930 seconds. What if the dollar falls from grace? China and Russia are trading in their own currencies. Saudi Arabia has flirted with pricing oil in yuan. And US debt has passed $35 trillion, a number so large it no longer fits the logic of fiscal restraint. The dollar's dominance was never guaranteed. It was engineered through war debts, oil deals, and decades of quiet coercion. Every treasury bond held abroad is a silent vote of confidence. Every one sold off is a warning shot. To understand why this system is trembling, we have to go back in time. Back to when the world's most powerful currency was not the dollar at all. Back to when gold, not government, was trust itself. Because history's pattern is merciless. Every reserve currency, from the Dutch guilder to the British pound, rose on the same promises and fell for the same reasons. The cycle never breaks. It only resets. And now, that cycle has come full circle. To understand how the dollar's throne was built and how it might crumble, we must return to the beginning. The year is 1945. Europe is in ruins. Asia lies shattered. Factories are silent, currencies worthless, and gold locked away in American vaults. The United States now holds more than 2/3 of the world's gold supply. The rest of the world holds its breath. In this vacuum, one meeting changed everything. Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, July 1944. Delegates from 44 nations arrived with empty hands and desperate hopes. At the head of the room stood two men, John Maynard Keynes, the British economist who once ruled global finance, and Harry Dexter White, the American Treasury official who would soon rewrite it. Their bargain was deceptively simple. Each country would peg its currency to the US dollar, and the dollar itself would be pegged to gold at $35 per ounce. America became the only nation allowed to print the world's gold substitute. But hidden beneath that deal was a subtle act of empire. While others rebuilt, the United States exported dollars, not goods. Europe borrowed them, oil producers demanded them. By 1950, nearly 60% of global reserves were already held in US currency. Washington had found a way to finance its power without conquering new lands. Instead of armies, it sent paper promises. And every dollar abroad became a silent bond to the American system, to its banks, its markets, its treasury. Yet the cracks appeared early. By the late 1950 seconds, France's Charles de Gaulle accused the US of living beyond its means, exporting inflation while hoarding real gold. Foreign central banks began demanding metal instead of paper. Gold drained from Fort Knox like blood from a wounded empire. The numbers told the truth. In 1958, US gold reserves were $20 billion. By 1971, they had fallen below $10 billion. Confidence, the invisible currency, was slipping away. But Washington couldn't stop printing. The Vietnam War, the Great Society, the costs mounted, and the presses kept running. The world's faith in the dollar and America's ability to defend it was about to be tested. The stage was set for the collapse, and when it came, it would shatter not only the gold standard, but the illusion of fiscal control itself. It was a Sunday night, the 15th of August, 1971. Americans tuned in to their televisions, expecting calm reassurance. Instead, President Richard Nixon appeared before the nation and detonated a financial bomb. He declared that the United States would temporarily suspend the dollar's convertibility into gold. Temporarily. The word was a lie. That night, the link between money and metal, the anchor of global trust since Bretton Woods, was severed. Markets woke up in chaos. By Monday, foreign exchanges scrambled to price a dollar that no longer promised anything tangible. Gold soared, currencies trembled, and the age of floating exchange rates began not as an economic innovation, but as an act of desperation. Behind the cameras, the truth was brutal. The US could no longer defend the $35 per ounce standard. Foreign governments, led by France and Switzerland, had been demanding gold in exchange for their growing mountains of US paper. In the first half of 1971 alone, over $3 billion in gold drained from American reserves. Nixon's decision, crafted by Treasury Secretary John Connally, was less about policy than survival. Connolly told foreign leaders bluntly, "The dollar is our currency, but it's your problem." And he was right. The problem had just become global. Oil prices began to surge, inflation spread like wildfire. Countries once chained to the dollar began searching for escape routes, but the system had already adapted. By 1973, the United States struck a new deal with Saudi Arabia, price oil only in US dollars. In return, Washington would guarantee the kingdom's security. The petrodollar was born. Gold was out, oil was in. And with it, the dollar found a new backbone, not in metal, but in energy and military power. The world thought Nixon's shock was the end of an old system. In truth, it was the birth of a deeper, more invisible one. A system where money itself became a weapon, and debt not gold became the measure of strength. But that surface story hides a darker secret. Because once a currency's power is sustained by force and obligation instead of trust, the countdown begins. And that countdown never stops. The dollar's empire didn't survive by accident. It survived because it built a machine, a system so vast, so self-reinforcing, that most of the world forgot it even existed. 4 hidden pillars keep the dollar standing. The first is liquidity, the unmatched depth of U.S. Treasury markets. Every central bank needs a safe place to park reserves. Treasuries became that refuge, growing to over $26 trillion outstanding by 2024. It's not just debt, it's oxygen. The second pillar is law and enforceability. Every dollar-denominated contract, every global trade settlement runs through a financial system ultimately governed by U.S. institutions, the Federal Reserve, the Treasury, New York's clearinghouses. The rules of trade are American rules. The third pillar is network habit, the inertia of confidence. Once the world starts using one currency, changing becomes dangerous. In 1913, the British pound still accounted for 60% of global reserves. By 1945, it had collapsed below 15%. The same erosion can happen again, but it happens slowly, then all at once. The fourth pillar is power. U.S. military and geopolitical dominance backstops the dollar's role. Oil producers price in dollars because the U.S. Navy guards the sea lanes. Allies hold U.S. treasuries because the American defense umbrella keeps them secure. But pillars rot from within. Deficits swell. Sanctions weaponize finance. Competitors build alternatives. Since 2022, nations from China to Brazil have begun settling trade in local currencies, bypassing the dollar. Russia and China's cross-border payment system, CIPS, now moves billions outside of SWIFT each month. The mechanism still hums, but its rhythm is faltering. And the deeper truth? Every time Washington freezes reserves or sanctions rivals, it teaches the world a lesson. The dollar is powerful, but it is not neutral. The same weapon that protects can one day isolate. History has seen this before. The British pound once reigned unchallenged until war debts and global mistrust hollowed it out. By 1949, sterling had been devalued by 30%, and London's empire faded with it. Now, the same symptoms appear again. Fiscal strain, overreach, strategic fatigue. The pattern is too precise to ignore. The machine that sustains the dollar is still running, but it's overheating. And every empire that thought its money eternal learned the same truth in the end. The secret of reserve power isn't strength, it's faith. And faith, once tested, never fully returns. The dollar still dominates. It accounts for nearly 59% of global reserves, anchors commodities, and defines debt markets from Buenos Aires to Bangkok. But under the surface, the rhythm has changed. The world is diversifying quietly, cautiously, and irreversibly. In 2023, China and Brazil began settling trade in yuan. The BRICS nations spoke openly about creating a joint reserve currency. Even U.S. allies from India to Saudi Arabia started asking a forbidden question. Why must every trade, every debt, every ounce of energy flow through Washington's shadow? The cycle is repeating itself. Rising powers build trade networks outside the dominant system. Deficits grow faster than faith. Sanctions turn the currency of safety into a symbol of control. And ordinary citizens, not governments, pay the price. When reserve confidence erodes, inflation follows. Imported goods cost more. Savings buy less. The poorest nations, locked into dollar-denominated debt, face collapse first. It's the same pattern seen when the pound fell, history's quiet revenge for hubris. Yet this story isn't about America alone. It's about the nature of power itself. Money is never neutral. It's a mirror of trust, discipline, and belief. When those fade, the numbers still stand, but the meaning dissolves. The U.S. dollar was born from gold. It survived by oil, and it is now sustained by faith. Faith that Washington can manage its debt. Faith that the system will endure. Faith that tomorrow's dollar will still mean something today. But history is merciless. Every reserve currency, every empire's promise has broken under the same weight: arrogance, overreach, and debt. The Dutch guilder, the British pound, the pattern never lies. And if the dollar follows the same path, it won't fall in a crash. It will fade, quietly, transaction by transaction, trade by trade, belief by belief, until one day the world wakes up and realizes it already happened,